So that's being recorded on YouTube, or will in a minute.
Okay.
Okay. So now I think that is it. Webinar is now streaming on YouTube. So Anita, if you're listening to this, when you finally get the final results, or Parentia, you can go ahead and edit this. But it's gonna be a few minutes before the webinar actually starts. Okay, but we are live on YouTube.
Okay, perfect.
And oh, we got 12 minutes. Good.
Yeah, plenty of time.
Sure, sure. How long is your presentation?
Probably about 40 minutes.
That's perfect.
Yeah, I'd say about 40 minutes.
Mhm.
And then I figure we'll like at the end I can do the Q&A. So if anybody has questions, are you going to be monitoring, like if there's a question in between that you want to interrupt me for, feel
Sure.
free to
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'll do that. I'll also look at anything that's put in chat, and I may respond directly to the client depending on what it is, or
Okay.
save that for a question later on.
Okay, that sounds great. Sounds good. So I'm getting ready for this weather to end, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to real spring.
Yeah, I know.
If that ever happens here in Cleveland.
I know, it's crazy. But we've had such a mild winter. It's just, I just can't believe it.
Yeah, that's pretty decent.
So it's been nice. It hasn't been quite as torturous as past, as it usually is, I should say.
Yeah. How's your business doing?
Good.
Good.
Yeah, we're doing good.
Good.
So we got a lot of changes going on right now, like totally revamping our marketing. And so all kinds of just like fun, exciting things that we've been super busy working on that stuff for this first quarter. So
Good.
oh yeah, it's real good. How's everything with SCORE? Like, are you guys like finding an uptick in, mentorship? I know I used a mentor there, Mark Crossy, and
Yeah,
I mean, I love it. He was so wonderful, and
Mark's pretty incredible.
yeah,
You got one of the very best that we have.
I was very lucky.
Yeah. No, he's also really brilliant.
He is very attentive, like always still to this day, like sending me things that he thinks would be of interest to me. And yeah, he's just very, very vested in what he does. So
Good. Nice.
yeah.
No, you're not a SCORE mentor, are you?
I'm not,
Oh,
no,
okay. All right.
no.
All right. Well, I'll introduce you. You should probably give whatever background information you want to give about yourself.
Yeah, well, I have a slide for that. So
Good.
I
Excellent.
definitely will. Yeah. And give a little plug for SCORE.
Oh yeah.
So
All right. 10 more minutes and we're in.
okay, great. All right, I'm gonna go fill up my water and stuff then and just kind of get myself ready since we were
Go for
able
it.
to
Yeah.
test this out so quickly. I will be right back.
All right. Sounds really good.
Okay. Okay,
Welcome back.
alrighty. Making sure the animals were quiet.
Yeah, I get it. So 6 more minutes and we're good to go.
Okay, where are you located exactly?
I'm in Beechwood.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, and where are you?
Strongsville,
Toronto.
other side of the bridge.
Really? Yeah.
It's so funny. Whenever I talk to people from the east side, it's like always like that bridge. Like you gotta cross that bridge.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was in Westlake Monday, doing a presentation at the Westlake Library.
Oh, okay. That's a nice library.
Very nice, yeah. They've got some great space too.
Yeah, they do. Were you doing that for SCORE? Like, are you
Mhm.
a mentor with SCORE too?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was up until this year, this fiscal year, I was the chair of SCORE for the last 3 years,
Oh, okay.
and now I'm a co-chair with 3 others,
Nice.
which is nice. It splits up the work a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys have a great group of volunteers there, that's for sure.
Yeah, we sure do. Yeah, a great leadership team too.
Hmm. Yeah, Cleveland really seems to have I don't know, just a really good presence, like as far as that type of mentorship goes, even in
Mhm.
just the different organizations, like I'm in NAWBO, for example, and we've won chapter of the year 2 years in a row. I mean, out of the whole country. Like, it's just
Yeah,
funny
yeah,
that little Cleveland is
yeah, yeah,
has that power.
yeah. Well, I know Barbara Daniels
Oh, yes. Oh,
from
I love
NABA.
Barbara.
Yeah,
She's such a great person.
she is. She is an excellent person. She's nice. I like her. We've done some things with them, and NABO's offered us for some of our clients who couldn't necessarily afford it. They've offered kind of scholarships to people that want to join NABO. So, we've got some women. I think we've got some women that belong. They've come from SCORE mentors, not mentors, but mentees.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot out there that I think a lot of people just aren't aware of. Like even the Goldman Sachs program,
Yeah.
that's huge. That's really
Mhm.
instrumental in, building a business.
No,
So
it's a great program. We refer people there. We have been I've been part of their interview process when they'll actually interview the candidates and go through the consideration of working with them. But I've also got a client that graduated that program and then it came back to us to help them to expand the business, but it has been fairly successful getting
great.
getting his business up and running. So,
That's
and that's,
great.
yeah, he went through that program.
Yeah. I mean, there really are a lot of free resources that I just don't think enough people know about. Cause I know even in the beginning, I mean, I just kind of was finding things out, little bits
Mhm.
and pieces as you go. So
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, people don't necessarily figure out how to connect the dots to all these resources, but eventually, if the resources are good, they'll get them there.
yeah, right. Right. Yeah, and sometimes there's so many, it's even overwhelming
Mhm.
because you've got Jumpstart and Launch House. There's like so much.
Tons. Yeah, there's tons. All right, 2 more minutes.
Okay.
I'll probably hit the start button at 11:59.
Okay. Sounds good to
Time
me.
to trickle in. So if you could send Anita a PDF of your slides,
I will do
and
that.
then she can, because they typically go out, they'll go out tomorrow generally.
Okay. I'll do that as soon as we're done here then.
Okay, great.
I'll
All right,
download
I'm
that.
gonna hit the start button,
Okay,
and actually, let me go close my door so I don't bother anybody.
okay.
All right, I'm gonna hit start, and let's go.
All right.
Here we go. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bob Cohen. I'm with SCORE, and we are just going to wait a minute or two. People are coming in, and once we get everybody in, we will get started. So thank you for joining us this afternoon. And we'll still wait another minute or two. We're still getting a lot of people coming in. All right, so I've got 12:01. I think we'll probably get a few more people coming in as we go. But I wanted to get us started so that everybody can go and enjoy the rest of your lunch hours. So again, welcome. And one more time, my name is Bob Cohen. I am a SCORE mentor. And I want to welcome everybody to this session this afternoon. A nice lunch and learn. And hopefully something will come of this that you can take away and remember for the rest of your career and all the things that you're going to be working on. So before we get started, I'd like to just give you about 5 minutes about SCORE, and then we'll move on and Laura will take over from this point. So you're looking at my screen right now, and I want to welcome everybody. So just a couple things on SCORE. What is SCORE? We're probably the very largest network of free volunteers helping small businesses in the country. And no matter what stage your business is in, we're here to help. So we can help you from, just from the idea stage all the way through. Let's assume that you've had this business for 20, 30 years and you're getting ready to sell it. We can help you with the exit side of it. So we're here for the life of your business. That's something that we as SCORE take very seriously, and we will help you no matter what stage your business is in. Our mission is to foster vibrant small business communities through mentoring and education. And you all know that small businesses really drive the economy. There's only so many large corporations out there, but there are many, many more small businesses that employ people, that grow our economy, that help actually to work with the economy. And as small businesses go, so does our economy. So that's important to SCORE, to the SBA, to all the people that work with us to make sure that small businesses really stay vibrant. That's That's our mission. So a couple things about SCORE Cleveland. We're made up of volunteers. There's about 90 volunteers here in Cleveland. SCORE is a national organization made up of about 12,000 volunteers, 250 chapters. The SCORE Cleveland chapter was chapter of the year in 2022. So of the 250 chapters that are out there, we're very, very proud to be the #1 chapter. In 22, we started 227 new businesses, somewhere close to 920 jobs that we created. And our chapter provided services to almost 9,000 individual services, which would be either mentoring directly, or it could be somebody joining one of our webinars. But thanks to the people like you, we've been very busy for several years, and it's been wonderful. And so just want to let you know that in terms of the kinds of mentoring that we do, we're out there. We've got, all kinds of remote mentoring, training to help you with any part of your business, and a resource portal that I'll show you in a couple minutes. And so there's a ton of support out there for you. One of the things that's very important to us is that we protect our clients' privacy. So #1, we've got a code of ethics. We are not allowed to make money in any way, shape, or form from the businesses that we serve. So that if we're working with you, the information we give you is specifically to make you successful, not to help us become successful in working with you in your business. So that's really important to us. We're not allowed to use any of the information that we receive from you in a commercial way, and all of the information that we gather is totally 100% confidential. So that's an area that we are very, very, every year, our mentors must sign a code of ethics stating that, this is the behavior that's expected from them. Then the last part that I wanted to show you, second last part actually, is the fact that we are a service arm of the SBA. And everything that we do is free and it's unlimited. So if you are in need of a mentor, I'll show you how to do that in a second. All of that is free and unlimited. All of our workshops right now are free. We don't charge for our workshops. And our 90 mentors, as I mentioned before, are all volunteers. This is our website, score.org/Cleveland. And here you can request a mentor. If you go take a workshop, this will show you the various workshops that we have in production right now. We do about 100 workshops a year on various topics, as you'll see this afternoon. And you can find a mentor. Not only do we have mentors here locally, the 90 that I mentioned, that cover a variety of specialty areas that might be of need for you, but also we have access easily to the other 12,000 mentors that are out in the rest of the country. So if there's an area in which we don't have that expertise, we can call anyone anywhere in the country, and our database is very, very rich, so we can find that pretty quickly. The other thing is that when you start your business and you are looking for information, you can go to our website. There's a ton of different information, and you can take a look at by stages, planning and starting your business, and managing and growing your business. So what we offer is divided up in that way. So I would suggest that if you have an opportunity to get to our website, please go there, take a look at the materials that are available for you. And at this point in time, I'm going to stop sharing and turn this over to Laura to get the program started. So I'd like to introduce you to Laura LaCursi. Laura has a business that she started not long ago and is thriving, thank goodness. And on top of that, Laura has been a SCORE client. So I'm going to let her take over, tell you a little bit about herself, and get into the program itself. By the way, I will monitor the chat. I will also, save questions for Laura. The other thing I wanted to let you know is everybody that's on this call right now will get a recording of what's going on. And we're recording on YouTube. That'll be available. We'll send it to you directly. We'll also send you a copy of Laura's slides. So here you go. Laura, take over.
All right. Thanks so much, Bob. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being with us today. Excited to present for SCORE. I myself have used a SCORE mentor, and he was amazing. I just have to give a shout out to Mark Crossy. So if anybody has not utilized the mentor services that SCORE offers, I would highly suggest doing it because, like Bob said, they are just very dedicated to what they do. So today what we're going to talk about is how to use a virtual assistant along with some other fun things. So real quick, a little background on me. I'm Laura LaCursi. I am the owner of Elite Virtual Assistants. I actually left corporate America back in 1997. I had a great job right here in Cleveland, working for the Cleveland Indians. As exciting and fun as it was also a lot of hours. And when I started my family in 97, I knew I did not want to be away from them that much. So I was actually able to find a job working from home shortly after I had my daughter. Which wasn't easy, honestly, back then, because that was even before Google was out there. But I was able to get started in the financial industry, helping wholesalers. And it really kind of just snowballed into me being able to carry that out for a duration of about 18 years. I opened Elite Virtual Assistants in 2015. And I am also an alumni of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. That's another program that I would highly recommend to anybody who is eligible and interested. That again is another free service that is, it's like a mini MBA for your business. And again, I would really recommend you looking into it if you haven't yet. I currently hold certifications as a diversity supplier for the city of Cleveland, a women business enterprise for the state of Ohio, and an EDGE certification, which is encouraging diversity, growth, and equity. One of the nice things about holding these certifications, and the reason that I go through the process to do it, is I feel that it's a really good way to let people know that you are a solid, sustainable business, because there is a lot that you have to go through in order to get certified. And it's actually just something that I've always wanted and that I will continue to renew. Let's see. Okay, so what we're going to cover today, first off, our main topic, what is a virtual assistant? Next, we're going to talk about what should I do to prepare to work with a virtual assistant, because just like anything, the more prep work you do, the more successful you're going to be. We're also going to talk about how you can delegate effectively to a virtual assistant. And then I threw in a little bonus. This is what to expect in the first 30, 60, 90 days of working with a virtual assistant, because a lot of times people really aren't sure exactly what they should be looking for. Okay, so let's start out with what is a virtual assistant. So basically, think of a virtual assistant as virtual back office support. So, and I'm going to just refer to them as a VA because it's, we just call them VAs. So a VA is a remote worker that can really be anything that you need them to be. So they can be a personal assistant, legal and executive assistants. They can be project managers, digital marketing specialists, content writers, social media coordinators, bookkeepers. Really virtual assistants are versatile. Usually they have their own special set of skills and specialties, and really can be a big boost to somebody's business who maybe isn't quite ready for an employee yet. So think of a VA as an affordable way to hire an experienced assistant without having the expense of an employee, especially when you're first starting out in your business. You're probably not an employee of your business yet either. And it's very hard to, want to get to that point right away when you hit the ground running with your business to be able to just bring on employees. So a couple things to keep in mind with a VA, they're subcontractors. So there's no paid vacations, no benefits, there's no office equipment, space, or supplies that you need to provide, and there's no in-office distractions. And what I find really funny about that part is back when I was a virtual assistant, I also worked for somebody that I would actually go into their office one day a week because they happened to be local. And when I think back to how much more productive I was working virtually for clients versus that one day I was in somebody's office, where I'd say maybe I worked about 70% of the time, where the other 30% was just more socializing. It just was like a little looser structure. And I think a lot of times people don't think about that when you are working with a virtual assistant, they are focused for a certain amount of time on your work and your tasks. So there's really nothing extra that you're paying for when you work with a VA. You're only paying for the time that they work, and they will have flexible availability, because virtual assistants, anybody who is in this field, this is what they're doing for a living. So they are able to adjust their schedules to as much or as little as you need them. But there's a few things to consider that I always like to bring up and make people aware. VAs are not physically with you. So a virtual assistant obviously is working remotely from another location, whether they are local to you or they're in another state, and sometimes possibly in another country. That can be difficult for some people who, might lack organization, or might just really need that one person there to, maybe you want to bounce things off of them, or you're somebody who just likes to fire off things to do, and you need somebody there to do that. That is not going to be, a virtual assistant will not work in that situation for you. They're not ideal for on-demand services either. And what I mean by that is, again, virtual assistants will usually have several clients that they're working for. You're going to be making up a schedule and know each other's availability in the beginning. And if you need something like in the next half hour or hour, that person might not be able to do it. So that is something to keep in mind. And they're really not ideal for reception type services. So unless you are going through an agency that actually is built for receptionists, where they are just sitting there answering calls all day, if you're only working with a virtual assistant for 10, 20, 30 hours a month, they're not going to be available 8 hours a day to pick up that phone every time it rings for you. So what I say to kind of help out with a situation like that is to be able to set up some type of a structure where you might have a dedicated phone line for your business. It can roll to a voicemail, and then you have a certain schedule that your virtual assistant goes in, checks the voicemails, and then, responds to it accordingly. Okay. Now we're going to talk a little bit about how to prepare to work with a virtual assistant. And I've put together 3 action steps that you would want to take before you actually get started working with somebody virtually. So first off is what to delegate. And this might sound simple. You might be thinking, well, why wouldn't I know what to delegate? There's a lot of times that we talk to clients or potential clients coming in, and they say, I know that I need help, but I don't really know where to start, or I don't know what exactly I need help with. So in that case, what we always tell people to do is to track what you're doing on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. And this might sound tedious and time consuming, but I can tell you that it is imperative for you to be able to keep track of everything that you do, and then be able to take a look at all of that to be able to see what you can delegate out. So whether you want to, keep track of that on paper, maybe in your planner, or put it in a Google Doc, this is going to be the best way to get everything that you're doing out of your head and actually onto paper, where you can, take some action with it. Once you have that together, now you can actually sit down and determine from that list, what tasks are you doing that are actually yours? Most of the time, there's not as many things as you think there are that only you can do. So one of my colleagues, Lisa Curley Malice, always refers to a zone of genius. And the zone of genius is really that intersection of what you love to do, what you do best, and what is going to move your business forward. And once you can determine what your zone of genius is, those are the tasks that you have to keep for yourself. Next, you can take a look at what's left after you pull out your zone of genius and say, what can I delete? So you're going to have things that you're probably doing right now that really aren't serving any purpose anymore or a reward. Sometimes we just do things because it's a habit and we don't really take the time to analyze, do I really need this anymore? Do I need to be doing this? Or maybe somebody else can do it. But an example of this might be, let's say that you are serving on a board that you're really not, you're not passionate about anymore, or that organization, isn't serving you anymore. You've moved in a different direction, whatever it can be. Those are some things that you can probably start taking off of your list. And then once you've been able to determine that, revisit the list and say, what can I delegate? What are the things on this list that I am able to teach somebody to do, train somebody to do, that I have a process or I can create a process for? Those are all of the things that you can actually delegate. And then what tasks can you share? So you might be doing some work right now that you think you have to own the whole role, but you probably don't. There's probably a piece that you have to do, and then somebody else can do the other pieces. So for example, if we were to talk about like marketing or social media, something like that, let's say you create a piece of content on a regular basis. Let's say it's every month. You write a blog, and then from that blog, that's where you create your social media content. That's where you're creating, graphics based on that content. And then you're also creating like your newsletter, or, your emails and things like that. You can still create that blog, but you don't have to be doing all of the other pieces. That is where somebody could come in, take your content and break it up for you, create the posts, create your emails, create the graphics, and then schedule it. Because let's face it, scheduling is one of those tedious things that we don't think about it, but it takes time. And it's something that you're probably doing now that somebody else could do better and faster and free you up to get back into working in that zone of genius. And then the other thing to really determine if a virtual assistant is right for you or what you need is take a look at what you're looking to delegate, and does any of the work actually require somebody to physically be in that office with you? Let's say you determine you have, 25 hours of work, and 5 hours of it is really just, let's just say it's like running things to different places, okay? That could be something that maybe an intern could do for you. Maybe your retired neighbor or, father-in-law or somebody like that could do for you. And then you've got a solid 20 hours that you bring in a virtual assistant who is skilled in that, will be able to just come in and kick all that work out for you. So there's a lot of different things that you can think about, but what I'm trying to get to here, that's the most important point, is to be able to really track what you're doing, and then from that decipher what you're going to delegate to somebody. And then the next thing to think about is who is going to best support you. So a couple things to keep in mind is there a specific skill set that is needed for the work that you're going to delegate? An example of this could, let's just say you need to build a new website from scratch. You don't want somebody who's just learning how to build websites. Trust me when I say that too, because, I see so many people that get started and they'll put money into somebody who can, let's just say, build a site on Squarespace or Wix, which really anybody can do because it's a plug and play. I actually built my first 2 websites on Wix. But as your business is growing, you need to have something that has much more capabilities than what that offers. And you want somebody who really knows what they're doing when it comes to building a website. Think about, if it's not something that they need that specific skill set for, can you just train the right person? So in that case, personality would really be what the most important piece of that is. So these are some things to think about. Like when we, at our agency, when we're pairing people, we run through, a complete exploration form to really kind of dive in and see, who the client is, what exactly they're looking for, what their personality is like. And we use a DISC assessment. That's also something that you can use if you're going to be hiring somebody on your own. And that really just kind of helps. It helps you if you take the DISC yourself. It really helps you kind of determine what personality type you are. And then you want to make sure that you are hiring somebody who complements that. So if you tend to be, let's say, you're that big vision thinker, somebody who's just that visionary, but you're really bad at implementation, you need somebody who's going to fill those implementation pieces and who's really going to be able to come in and not collide with you, but be able to, complement where your downfall might be, in order to, have the best relationship there. And then number 3 is how you're going to onboard your virtual assistant. And sometimes, I've seen where there's just not enough prep work done in the onboarding piece. And that is really key to bringing somebody on the right way so that you guys can start building a relationship together. And so that, they have everything that they need in order to work for you. So when you are prepping to onboard your VA, you've already figured out what you need, you've decided who the right person's going to be. You need to make sure that you have processes for those repetitive tasks. And one of my favorite tools to use is Loom. You can go to loom.com. It's an Chrome extension. And it is a screen recording. So what I love about it is when I first started putting processes together as I was delegating different pieces of my business out, I would click on the Loom. I would literally start working and just explaining the process as I went. So I not only was getting the work done, but I was also creating a video process for somebody. You can take that and it can complement a Google Doc. But if, for example, you just don't have a lot of things documented at this time, just use Loom to get started. And then your virtual assistant could come in and actually create a more streamlined process for you. But you need to have something that somebody can follow, or make sure that you are 100% available to train that person from start to finish. And then you also want to make sure that you share with this person what your mission, vision, guiding principles, core values, whatever terms you use. You want to make sure that you share that so that this person knows why and how you make decisions. Because typically you're going to be making decisions based on these things, right? Based on your mission, based on what those guiding principles are. So you want to start from the very beginning so that, you want to make sure that you actually have somebody who is aligned with, what your mission and vision are. And then you just want to make sure that you have very clear expectations from day one regarding the engagement. And we'll actually get into this a little more as we go through this presentation, but having those clear expectations is really critical to having success, especially with somebody who's a remote worker. Okay, next we're going to talk about how to delegate effectively. This is key in working with a virtual assistant. It's really key in working with anybody, whether they're in your office or remote, but being able to delegate at an efficient level and an effective level is really the key to having a successful relationship. So tip one, I always say, just start small. Okay. The worst thing that you can do is take a brain dump and hand it to somebody and tell them to run with it, because that's not going to happen. And I have seen that happen before. So you want to start small, low stakes tasks or projects, nothing that's going to make or break your business. Okay. You want to start with small things so you can start, teaching somebody how and why you do things, and then, start building the momentum as you go. I always recommend those repetitive tasks. So whatever you do on a regular basis, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, those are some of the best things that you can offload to somebody, because it keeps them engaged. And really, from the beginning, they have a set structure of what they have to do on a regular basis to get to know you better, to get to know your company better. You get to interact with them a little bit more. So that's one of the key pieces that I always recommend, is to start with repetitive tasks. And then just think about, what is the easiest task that you have or project to capture with a process. So for example, a lot of people struggle with, I really need help with somebody managing my inbox, but I have no idea how to get somebody to do that. Well, you're going to want a virtual assistant who has experience with managing somebody's inbox, but you also have to be able to give the direction on what to do with the emails and what your process is right now for them to be able to get started. So again, hit that Loom button, start recording, go through, a morning of, here's the types of emails that I get in, read through them. If I get an email like this should go in a folder because only I can handle this. When I get these publications, I want these sent in a review folder so that I can read those at my leisure. And, maybe you have 15, 20 other emails that come in. Maybe half of them the virtual assistant can respond to. They need to know what those will look like. Or if it's something that somebody else on your team or in your office or maybe another vendor can handle, they need to know what those are so that they can forward those to the right people. And so that's kind of what I mean about, get those easiest tasks and projects, because like I said, you can be working through these while you are actually recording it for somebody else. Okay, the second tip is, make sure that you provide the information and the resources that a virtual assistant needs to accomplish this and make. And again, I keep going back to the process piece, because obviously in all the years I've been in here, that is the number one downfall, is not having processes or not having enough of a process for somebody to even get started. I've also seen very slow starts to relationships because the assistant does not have the access that they need to different software programs or whatever it might be that they need in order to do the work for you. People are very slow at getting the assistant access to that. So this should all be part of your prep before you start working with somebody, is to make sure that they will have the access that they need in order to perform the job at hand. And then make sure that you are super clear about that desired outcome. Never assign a task without a deadline. I can't stress that enough. Your idea of as soon as you can is going to be completely different than the virtual assistant's idea of as soon as you can. If you're giving a task or a project and you say, just get this done as soon as you can, to you, that could mean the end of the week. To the assistant, that could mean the end of the month. So you've got to make sure that you are really clear about when you need something by, what your expectations are for that task or project and what that outcome is supposed to look like. Like, okay, by the end of, the week, I don't want to have any emails in my inbox that I have to look at other than what is specifically for me in this folder that you guys designated. So you just have to make sure that, those expectations are really clear. And I know I'm probably going to be harping on a few things over and over again, but again, it's just coming from experience and seeing where some of that, focus and concentration needs to be. Okay, and then the third tip, create a communication plan. So from the very beginning, You need to know what is the preferred form of communication between you and your assistant. If you are already getting inundated with emails and they are looking for an answer for you and it's somewhere buried in your, their request is buried in your email, that's not really a good form of communication for you. So you need to decide what's going to work for both of you. Make sure that you set your meeting cadence up from the very beginning. You should be, if you're just starting out with an assistant, you really want to be able to meet with them as many times throughout the week as possible. If you can do 2 to 3 times a week for the first few weeks to make sure that that person can come back to you, present, okay, this is how I did this, and then be able to get feedback, that's going to be ideal. If you're only going to be able to do it once a week, then you're going to have some type of check-in throughout the week in those first few weeks. Again, just to keep everybody accountable and to make sure that everything is moving in the right direction. The feedback from these meetings has got to be on both sides. So, what's working for you, what's not working for you, and what's working for the VA and not, so that this way you can come in and find that middle ground of what's going to work for both of you. Make sure that you have clarity around both parties' availability. And I say this because, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of virtual assistants have other clients that they're working with. So they, again, a lot of times they use time blocking. So if they're working 5 hours a week for you, which is, about 20 hours a month, you want to know, are you working an hour a day? Are you working 2.5 hours for 2 days? If so, what are the times that you're working? What are the days that you're working? And then they need to know what your availability is as well, so that when they have questions or when they have issues, when can they actually reach out to you? Maybe if you don't have anything that's really time sensitive and you just say, hold all of your questions until, our next meeting, just make sure that that's clear from the very beginning and understand that if they get stuck, they might not be able to finish what they need to until they can get a hold of you. And then make sure that you're setting incremental goals. So not like in 3 months, this is what I want to happen. You need to back out of that 3 months and have goals that are going to be leading up to that big goal so that you guys can have regular check-ins, again, just to gauge how the relationship is going and then be able to make any changes that are necessary. I'm not going to go through all of the levels of delegation, but there are 6 different levels of delegation. And why I just pointed these 2 out, because I have seen over the years clients coming in and starting to delegate at that level 6. I'm just going to give you this work and assume that it's done. Well, if you're doing that with somebody that you're just getting started with, you're setting both of yourselves up for failure. You need to start at that level 1 delegation, step-by-step instructions. They need to report back to you for feedback and then the next steps. This is the only way that you are going to be able to gauge if they're grasping the processes that you put together, if they're understanding why they're doing what they're doing. And you, again, that feedback on both sides is very important. Sometimes it might even seem a little elementary in the beginning, but I promise you that the more time you put in up front, the less time you're going to have to put in at the end, and the faster you're going to get to that level 6. Because once they have a good handle on what they're doing and they know exactly what you want, what you expect, what you don't want, you're going to be able to start delegating things and just know that they're done. So this piece is really important when you're, delegating out. So if you take all of these things that we just talked about, okay, figuring out who's the right person, what am I going to delegate, how am I going to delegate to them and onboard them, plus the tips to delegating effectively, you've really created this roadmap to success for yourself. You can take that same process and repeat it over and over again every time you need to either delegate something to a new person, or maybe this person is moving into a bigger role. You will be able to just repeat this process over and over again. So if you start at the task level, you will be able to watch your virtual assistant go from handling tasks to handling projects to taking over roles. So for example, one of the first things that I ever started delegating out was my marketing, because it was one of those things that I did it when I had time to do it. Because when I started out, just like most people, I was wearing every hat, running 3 kids all over the place, trying to balance it all out. And marketing was always the last thing that I did, because clients and sales are always first, above and beyond anything else. So I started slow, kind of like the example I gave you earlier. I came up with a blog, then I hired somebody who could take that blog, break it up into the different pieces, start getting it out onto social media. I started having somebody come in and help me with, a little bit of client management, for example, because, you start growing, you get to that point that, you really can't stay on top of everything the way you want to. And then those tasks actually turned into a role. So now we have a client relations manager. Same with sales, right? You have somebody come in, maybe help manage your sales as they're coming in, maybe help with certain pieces of the process. Eventually that has become a role. And now I have a sales director. Same with recruiting, helping with those pieces until that became a role. So, now all of the major roles in my business are owned by other people, which is great, but I had to start somewhere, and they all started with task-based work and being able to delegate that out effectively. Okay, so here's the little bonus that I mentioned. It's kind of what to expect in your first 30, 60, and 90 days of working with a virtual assistant. A lot of times people aren't 100% sure what should be happening in this time, other than obviously work being done. But just to kind of keep realistic expectations in place, this is why I put this together here. So that first 30 days is really all about building trust, and everything should be put out at that level 1 delegation. So this is the time when you are going to learn about one another, what communication style works best, understand and acclimate with the company culture. That's what the VA is going to be doing. They're going to be learning all about your company's product or service. You're going to have weekly or more conversations to provide and receive feedback. They're going to be learning the necessary tools and software that they need to complete the job. They should be, by the end of 30 days, have completed 1 to 2 assigned tasks or projects, and you should be working together to achieve whatever that set goal is. So a lot of times, people come in and think that there should be this massive transformation in their business in 30 days. And as entrepreneurs and business owners, we obviously want everything to happen yesterday, but you need to take a step back and make sure that you have this plan to follow. So the first 30 days shouldn't be about how much work can we get done. It should be how well are we going to get to know each other, and let's build this foundation of trust for each other. And then in your next 60 days, this is where you're really going to start working a little more on those systems and processes that you probably have already started to put together, but now they're going to start being tweaked so that they're a little more efficient, and they're probably working better for you, your virtual assistant, and your company. Again, what is working? Is there anything new that we need to create? They're going to continue to complete the next set of those assigned tasks and projects. They're going to be given added responsibilities within that, second 30-day period. And then they should be integrated with your team by the end of the 60 days. So if you have other people on your team, they should be integrated with them as well. Even if they don't have 100%, if the work that they're doing isn't 100% ingrained in some of these other people, they need to know what is going on, because it really helps them get a better picture and a better idea of how to help you in different areas. And then 90 days. So you're at the end of your 3-month period. Your virtual assistant should be pretty close to working independently. They should be completely integrated with your team and your company. Tasks at this point or projects are being completed independently. The VA is going to own and manage multiple responsibilities. And those lines of communication are completely open. So what you want to make sure that if there's an issue, you can't be afraid to bring it up. And your virtual assistant should not be afraid to approach you to bring it up. You know, if we don't have communication, you really don't have anything. It doesn't honestly matter if it's with a marriage or if it's with an assistant. You know, you've got to have those lines of communication open at all times, because that's what's going to make or break that relationship. Okay, so what we covered today, we talked about what a virtual assistant is, also talked about a few areas that they're really not ideal. We talked about what you should do to prepare to work with an assistant. We went through the steps on delegating effectively to a virtual assistant, and then what those realistic expectations are in that first 30, 60, 90 days of working with an assistant. The last thing that I like to go over here is I just, you know, like to tell you to protect yourself, especially in this day and age. You could have the most trustworthy person in the world working for you, and they could be doing something behind your back, and it doesn't even matter where they came from, but you can add some layers of protection to what you're currently doing. So if you're not going to go through an agency for an assistant where they're vetted and, you know, background checks are run and what have you, I would really recommend just asking people for referrals or going to a trusted source to work with somebody. Not saying that there's not great people out there, but a lot of times it's going to give you a level of comfort in the beginning, knowing that they came as a referral. I always highly recommend using a password manager. We use LastPass, and it is just a way for you to protect your login information, so that in the event you need to, you know, if somebody is leaving you, not working with you anymore, you're not scrambling to go in and change all of your passwords. LastPass works as it's basically a vault to hold your passwords. I have all of my stuff in LastPass, whether it's personal or business, because I have so many passwords at this point, I can't remember any of them. It goes on your phone, your iPad, you know, on your browser. And it's great because whenever I have somebody coming in and I need to share access to, let's just say it's our CRM. I'm sharing access to our CRM. All I have to do in my LastPass is hit the share button, and then the virtual assistant or whoever you're sharing with also has to have LastPass, and then they can accept the shared item. You launch it right from that vault, and all it does is allow them in without ever seeing your login information. So if you ever need to revoke somebody's access, you just go into LastPass and you revoke the access. You are, like I said, you're not going out scrambling, trying to change all of your passwords. So it worked there. I'm not going to lie. There's like a couple quirky things sometimes about LastPass where somebody might need, you know, that login information initially, like a password, but it's very few and far between. Like I said, I use this with my team, and, you know, I have not had a problem with it. And then again, if you are not going through an agency where you have contracts, you know, everybody's contracted, at least use a non-disclosure agreement and have your assistant sign it. This is just a little layer of protection. Again, nothing is 100%, but it's always good to have that to make sure that your information is going to be, you know, held confidentially. Okay. So I'm open for questions at this point. If anybody has anything that they want to ask.
So we've got a bunch,
Okay.
several of which are around security. So I'll just start going through them one by one.
Okay.
And where we've got duplicates of the same kinds of questions, I'll just do the one. Anyway, so somebody wants to know, is it standard to pay sick days to VAs? And whether it's yes or no, what are the optional benefits that you find that VAs might appreciate and value most from an employer? So I'll start with that, and there's another part of that question.
Sure. So it's really not standard. I mean, typically, if you think about it, a virtual assistant is working for you on a pretty part-time basis. The way that I know, like within our agency, if a VA is sick for a couple days, they can just make up the work, on the back end, maybe the next week or what have you. The whole point of having a VA is having that flexibility and not having to pay that time. So, I mean, the short answer to that is no, you don't have to pay sick days. You could always do that if you want to. Again, depending on how many hours they're working for you, I've never seen it to be necessary or to be an issue.
Yeah, and it seems to me that one of the reasons that you would have a VA, as you said, is so that you've got variable labor as opposed to having labor on your payroll all the time. So,
Exactly.
yeah, so that actually is, from a financial perspective, a better way to go.
Right.
Okay. Confidentiality, you did address. A non-disclosure agreement, is something that seems to work. Somebody that has a lot of credit cards and passport information and so on, what would you recommend in terms of security there?
So again, credit cards nowadays, they're just so, if somebody needs to have your credit card number because they're, purchasing things for you on behalf of you, what have you, I would just recommend keeping, you got to keep tabs on your stuff anyways. Just keep tabs on the charges that are coming through. And if something doesn't seem right, you can address it with that person. But usually the credit card companies are really good about, you call in, you say you don't recognize this charge, and they take it off, do their investigation, what have you. And that's something though that I probably, maybe don't give that out right away. If that's a concern, work with somebody for a month or two, again, build that trust, and then be able to, give that information out. Again, I actually keep information like that in LastPass. So you can have not only passwords, but you can have secure notes in there. So you could share that note with somebody. So they would be able to see the information that you share with them, but it actually wouldn't just be out there in a Google spreadsheet or something.
Okay. I have one that's related to just Gmail or email in particular. So when it says if you have more than one person logging into, let's say, Gmail, it can lead to a permanent shutdown of the account. Had this happened on a board, somebody had this happen on a board once, and they lost everything that was, and it was never recoverable. So I'm not quite sure how do you give somebody access to your Gmail, and are there too many? Is it possible to have too many people have access? I guess is the question.
To be honest with you, I have not had the experience of that. Again, you can share your Google access through LastPass. So if you're having somebody who is checking your email for you daily, once they log in and get in, just like any Gmail, it will be there. They don't have to continue to log in. I know that Gmail will log you out after, so long. We use G Suite within our organization, but I've never heard of that or seen that. I don't know how many different people would need access to somebody's Gmail. So I would maybe just keep that at a minimum, or, really do a little search into, is there a certain number of logins that you can have in a specific period of time? Because I have not experienced that.
I would also assume that if somebody's using an app like LastPass, that Gmail just doesn't know the difference between the LastPass security versus anything else. So,
well, and the other thing is, initially, like typically with Gmail, they have that two-factor authentication,
yeah.
Where once somebody logs in for the first time, it'll pop up, is this you? And you just have to hit confirm or get numbers through your YouTube. app or what have you. But usually once they're in, then it's not a problem. I know, like for me, I have 2 people that have access to my email. And if they ever get logged out and have to log back in, they just let me know ahead of time so that we don't run into those issues.
Okay. Next question, I've got to look at it for a second and interpret it. So somebody wants to know that, once you have set specific hours and times that somebody's actually going to be doing the work, wouldn't that be somewhat similar to having somebody part-time on a payroll as opposed to working as a contractor?
I mean, you could view it like that. Yeah. But the key is sometimes it's not always easy to find somebody to come into your office for 20 hours a month or 5 hours a week. The flexibility that you have with a virtual assistant is that, you have somebody that can do that or that can change it, but you don't have all of the other pieces of having the employee. You don't have all of the taxes that you pay when you have an employee. And again, being able to not have to provide equipment. It's basically like doing B2B business, right? They're not an employee, they're actually like another entity or a vendor, and you're just doing business with that vendor. So it just offers a lot more flexibility than an employee. And the thing is, you do have to, that's why I say to come up with whatever the schedule is going to look like between both of you, because technically you can't really dictate when a subcontractor works for you, just like any outside vendor. So, that is kind of a fine line. So it's what works best for both of you. And, that can vary, obviously, depending on the amount of time someone will be working with them.
So Laura, a question I have based on that. So typically, if somebody is working for you as a VA, do they bill you directly? They bill the employer directly, or is it a 1099 situation?
Yeah, so they are 1099 subcontractors. So what they do is they invoice us for the time that they work for their client, and then we pay them.
Got it. Okay. All right.
So
actually, our SCORE chapter is set up like that. We have somebody that's working for us through a third party, and that's been helpful for us. So okay.
Yeah.
Let's see what else I have here. So I think we've pretty much covered most of the security questions. Somebody wants to know kind of what a ballpark figure is for the cost of services. Do you have a between this and this kind of situation?
Yeah, I mean, it really varies. It depends on, obviously, if you're going through an agency, you're going to pay more because you've got the backup of the agency behind you that really handles a lot. And if you're working with a freelancer, you're going to pay whatever their rate is. Ballpark, I would say somewhere between $20 to $45 an hour. Again, it also depends on what kind of work this person is doing. Do they have to have like a specific skill set? How much experience do they have? Things like that.
Okay.
But that's about ballpark.
Okay. All right. So yeah, somebody asked pricing and hourly rates and so on. I think we've got that covered. What's a realistic time frame to make sure that somebody's got a VA that's got the right skills and the right potential, and this person doesn't want to waste their time, hiring somebody and I guess having to go back out and take a look and find more or different.
I'm sorry. Can you say that again? I don't know if I really caught what the question was there.
I guess what's the time frame that to make sure you've got somebody. So assuming they contact you and they tell you what they're looking for, what's the time frame that they should expect to get somebody that's actually going to fit their needs? How's that?
Yeah. So we usually say 7 to 10 business days. But again, that also has a lot to do with how soon are we able to like schedule that exploration call. And then from the time that we do our exploration call, which is like our deep dive, so you've already committed to work with us. That's our second phase, where I mentioned like we, really dive into personalities and, what the details of the work are. And then usually it's about 5 to 7 business days from there. And then we have our video onboarding call.
Somebody wants to know about HIPAA compliance. So this is a medical practice that probably needs to make sure that everybody that works there in some way or another is HIPAA compliant.
Yes. So we have actually worked with several companies that had that. And basically, so at one point we had somebody who had been through, because there's HIPAA training or a certificate or something that they need to have. We had somebody who actually had that. And then we also have had a couple instances where that company has paid for that person to become HIPAA. I forget if it's certified or compliant, but there is a certification of some sort needed. And those are the 2 different instances that we've dealt with.
Yeah. And then this person, probably the same person that asked the question about credit cards before, as a travel agent and processes a lot of client credit cards and is worried about security on those cards in particular.
I mean, all I can say is, again, just you have to be working with somebody that you have a certain level of trust with, and just it's really no different than if you had somebody in your office or not. Like, you still have to have that trust factor where you're willing to have somebody come in and help you with those things and trust that, that they're not going to be taking anybody's information. And just, always making sure that everybody's just keeping an eye on charges. I mean, I have to do that anyways. Just how many times like my card's been compromised and God knows where it happened. So it seems to happen to everybody quite often anymore.
Yeah. It's, it's just, you do the best you can to vet people that you talk to and make sure that you feel that they've got some honesty, but then you look over their shoulders as necessary and make sure that they are not doing what they shouldn't.
Right.
Okay.
And I mean, not again, that this will always be 100%, but if you're not going through an agency, I would recommend a background check. I always highly recommend that, just to, make sure that there's not anything crazy or outstanding in their past.
So another one, if several people are using LastPass, can we track the activity by person or user?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Does your service provide company-owned computer equipment to the hired VAs?
No. So the VAs are subcontractors, and so like I said, they're basically like their own business. So they have their own equipment, their own office setup.
Yeah. So, when you think about the definition of somebody that is a contracted employee, contracted outside employee, one of the definitions is that they have to have their own tools. So like if you're in the construction business and you're bringing somebody in to do work for you, and they are, somebody that you're contracting, you're giving them the work, they're doing the work with their tools.
Exactly. It's just like if you're going to hire any type of outside vendor, like let's say you hire somebody that, or, a CPA or a marketing firm, they're going to have all of their own setup, equipment, what have you.
Yeah.
So it's basically the same situation.
Yeah. And you know what, the IRS has some very specific definitions of what that looks like. And certainly a VA, for the way in which you're doing it, fits that description properly.
Right.
Okay. I asked that one already. Can you talk more about how to find a professional VA? Not sure, John, what you're looking for, but you know, I guess a couple ways to do it would be to go through an agency like Laura's directly, or potentially look at posting stuff on job boards and things like that. But
Yeah.
how would you
Yeah, that's what I
advise?
would say.
Yeah.
You can honestly basically look for a virtual assistant the way that you would look for, an employee. If you're not going to go through an agency, that is what I would recommend. Put it out there on LinkedIn. There's different Facebook groups too that have freelance virtual assistants, that are in there, and people can jump in and ask questions. Personally, I wouldn't do that, but I know a lot of people do, and people have had great success with that. Or again, just talk to people, like when you're networking, is somebody using somebody that they've had great success with, that they like, that they trust, that might have extra availability to work
Mhm.
with you. I think that's the safest way. You can also, there's Indeed, there's so many different places you can go. There's actually a couple other places. I don't know if you have to pay for, I don't know if you have to pay to post on there, but there's a place called Flex Jobs. Typically that's not going to be something that's super part-time that you would want to put on there. But if you had something maybe that was, 40, 60, 80 hours a month, I think it's, more for jobs like that, but those are, again, flexible remote positions. So that's flexjobs.com. There's also virtual vocations. That's another place where you could go and post a job opening. Or LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is, to me, just a little more professional site than Facebook to find somebody. But
Mhm.
like I said,
Yeah.
those groups are all out there.
So here's a question for us, you and me. It's 1:06. I'm willing to stay on as long as we have people on. I'm waiting for answers for their questions. We still have another 8 or 10 questions to go.
Okay,
Those
I'm
that
fine.
need to, okay, those that need to drop off, by all means, do so. And it was great having you. But if you hang on, we'll go through the rest of the questions. So let's do that. And let's see, what have I got? We've talked about pay. Um, yes, there will be a recording of this available for everybody. Um, are your VAs within the US? I guess, Laura, is the question for you directly.
Yes. Ours are, yes. Ours
Yeah.
are all within the United States. Mhm.
Right. Let's see what I didn't cover yet.
I see one about somebody talking about accountability for hours, like a tracking
Yeah,
system.
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, like, as far as our agency goes, so we sell packages of hours. So, let's say somebody bought 20 hours, that VA is available to work for you up to 20 hours a month. And we use time tracking software so that they are keeping track of how many hours they're working. They're sending clients a report at the end of every week. And then they're also, the VA is accountable for, okay, we have 5 hours left in 3 days. What can I do for you to get that done? Or, to fulfill that so that you don't lose hours. If you're working with somebody, freelance, and they are, just kind of working however many hours are needed, I definitely have them track their time. And, you just have to, again, as I mentioned about like being really clear about what your expectations are. If you need somebody to be really specific about the details and notes that go in with the time that they're working, just make sure that you say that. We have clients that need the details. Like, we work with a lot of attorneys, and they need the notes to be as detailed as possible because they typically will correspond with, let's say, like a client case. And then we have other people that are like, just tell me if you're working on email or you're doing client work, or, very general. So
you're the one who really needs to determine how specific you want them to be in those details. But I would definitely have somebody keep track of time.
Okay, good. Let's see what else we got. Somebody wants to know if you know of any VAs that are good at building lists. I assume database type lists, but don't know the actual answer. Or
Yeah, I don't know. I'd probably need more information on that, like what kind of lists, where's the information coming from,
yeah, so this
that
is,
type of thing.
are
Sometimes
there,
you're almost better, honestly, like purchasing a list, depending on obviously what that list is. But
yeah, so it says, are there VAs that are expert list builders, whether researching and listing possible all vendors, potential clients, competitors, in events within a certain area? I imagine that there probably are people that are expert at that in some way or another.
yeah,
You know, depending
yeah,
on
like I said, a lot of assistants kind of have their own little niche or specialty, that they've done for people before. It just happens to be like their superpower. So yeah, I'm sure you could find somebody like that.
it. Good, good. I'm looking just to see if there's anything unique that I haven't looked at yet. We choose to hire a VA abroad, for example, in the Philippines, Kenya, or other areas, as opposed to through the US agency. Are there certain disadvantages than time zone differences and amazing use of English, and other risks that we open up ourselves to by hiring abroad? I'm not sure how to answer that.
Yeah, that's a loaded question. Everybody has had different experiences with overseas VAs, and I feel like you can still have some of the same challenges here, other than I will say that when we have people that come to us who have already worked with somebody overseas, it's the language barrier was a problem. Again, it just depends on what type of work you're having somebody do. And the time difference was always a problem. There's usually a 12-hour time difference, typically on average. And, again, it just really depends what type of work you're having somebody do. For example, if you're having somebody like building a list, that might be the best use of your money, is to have somebody at a much lower cost be able to do that. They're not really client facing, interacting, what have you. And I've had people that have had tremendous success with VAs over there. It's really just a kind of a crapshoot.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
have, let's put it this way, I don't have a company that I know of over there that I would refer somebody to.
I mean, I think you would just have to take your time and vet the right people, right person.
Yep.
And
Yep.
go through a whole process to do that. One last question, I think, and we're pretty much wrapped up. What tasks, and this is a good one for the end, what tasks are not good for a virtual assistant?
So really kind of the ones that I went over in the beginning. Reception type services are usually not good because, like I said, unless you're paying somebody 8 hours a day, they're not going to be there to just answer the phone like that for you. And in that case, I gave the example of just having different check-in points for a voicemail. Those on-demand services. So like if you have a business where, something comes in and you need it turned around in an hour, a virtual assistant is not going to be the right fit for that. And again, typically it's because they have a schedule that they need to keep. And so they're going to work those times out with you, unless it's somebody who says, oh yeah, I can do on-demand things. But in my experience, that has never worked. And again, if you are somebody who just needs somebody there with you to, hey, I need you to do this now, or hey, I need this done tomorrow, or hey, I was thinking about that. There are people that just have a very hard time grasping that somebody's not physically in the office with them, or maybe just aren't structured or organized enough to be able to lay things out in a fashion that you can hand stuff off to somebody and then have it come back like with that process. But those are really the only things. I mean, otherwise, like I said, if you make a list of everything that you need to delegate or that you're doing right now, look at the things that you want to delegate and ask yourself, does somebody have to physically be here with me in order to do that?
Great. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I think we're there. It's almost 1:15. We ran over a
Okay.
little bit. But a lot of people stayed on, which is great. I appreciate everybody having joined us today. Go on to score.org/Cleveland and take a look at what's coming up. We've got all kinds of great series and workshops in just about every subject that you can think about. So feel free to do that. And if you're in need of a mentor to help you with your businesses, either startup or grow your businesses, we're here to help. Go on and find a mentor, and we'll hook you up. So appreciate everybody joining us today, and talk to you somewhere in the near future. Thank